progress before the wipe happens and Act 8 goes live, which I will be streaming, by the way, over at twitch.tv/TOX underscore Phobos with the zeros as the O's, PH0B0S. Anyways, yeah, I was trying to recreate the freezing pulse totem character, and it went pretty well. I tried the Ascendant because nothing about the other Ascendancies has really changed much. So if I wanted to do one of the other characters, um, or not one of the other characters, but if I wanted to do one of the other versions of the build, it would be pretty much the same as on live, with just changes depending on like some of the new stats they put on items. So we can take you into the tree here. Obviously, you want to pick up Hierophant Ascendancy. That's the only one I'm capable of picking up now because on the beta you only have 4 Ascendancy points for some reason for the past like 3 or 4 weeks. God bless, but yeah. So the next one that we're probably gonna get when I remake this character, which I think I'm gonna do on the next phase of the beta in a couple hours, is probably gonna be Assassin. I was simming a bunch of these. I was thinking like Elementalist at first, but you don't get the Conflux, so you really only get the Penetration and the Golem. Or you can also do Deadeye as another interesting one for prod speed. Uh, this one might be worth it because you can pretty much get away with using one First Snow, which is going to allow you to use a gem that's going to give you more health and more damage. You can probably use one First Snow regardless, actually, though, because you don't really need 5 projectiles. Without it, you're going to have 3, and with this, you're going to have 4. So I might test this a bit and just see like how it feels with 4 projectiles. Projectile speed is really great with Freezing Pulse, as always. The projectiles gain damage as they travel further, though, is kind of lackluster, and obviously piercing isn't a big deal. Yeah, so I think those are the main ones. The crit chance really seems to be the best DPS wise, and the 40% crit multi against enemies that are on full life is really nice. So I think we're gonna go with that. Chieftain, not really that good. You can obviously use some of these other more obscure ascendancies if you want stuff like stun immunity. You can kind of just use your 3 endurance charges, and then with what do you call it? Trying to think of what it's called. Not rallying cry, but enduring cry. And then you'll have stun immunity, and you cannot be chilled. But I think it's better off to just go assassin. It's also nice because when you come to either assassin or Jedi, you're gonna pick up dex from these nodes, which is great because you're normally lacking dex with this build. And then on top of that, you get more skill points going Ascendant, so that's always nice as well. In terms of how things compare between Ascendant and the other classes, I'll go ahead and, well, I don't want to bring it up right now actually, but path of building, I did like a path of building breakdown with the Ascendant versus the Elementalist, I think. And the Elementalist obviously does more damage, but it's only by about, I would say, 10k or something like that. So that I feel like the damage is very minor. And if you account for frenzy charges, then you actually do a lot more damage, or not a lot more damage. You actually do more damage as this version. And the reason why I mentioned frenzy charges is because typically it's annoying to have like to be generating power charges and frenzy charges because you have to use Orb of Storms to generate the power charges, or you can use the trick where you swap. You can do the weapon swap and then the rallying cry or whatever. But obviously that's kind of a pain in the ass if you have void batteries because you end up still needing to drop the Orb of Storms at some point because you'll never end up with your full amount of charges because you get a power charge from each weapon, and when you do the weapon swap you're going to be missing out on one of those power charges because you can only get a wand with +1 power charges otherwise, so your shield is not going to have a power charge on it. So with the Scion, or the Ascendant rather, it's really nice because you're just casting your totems and you have a 50% chance to get power charges, as you can see. And so you can build them up pretty quickly before going to a boss room or something like that. And you'll always be at your full amount of charges, even if you have 2 void batteries or something like that. So that's kind of why I like it. It's very easy to keep charges up, and since you don't have to worry about keeping charges up at all, you can just freely cast Frenzy. Now, right now I only have Frenzy in a 1 link because just how my wands happen to happen. I ended up getting these wands for pretty cheap on beta, and I'm kind of actually sad they're getting wiped because they're kind of insane wands. This is probably like better wands that I'm gonna find in the next phase or even for a while in live. Uh, They're just pretty fucking amazing, but the problem is they're corrupted, so I can't I can't get my link set up properly. Like ideally, I'd probably have like a frenzy, faster attacks, GMP or something, just to make the frenzy charge generation a little bit more fluid, or maybe even add a chain on there or something like that, and move some of my other links around. But for now, this kind of does the job, and you can very easily keep up frenzy charge with this build, which are nice because they give the more damage and the cast speed. So, uh, and yeah, that's pretty much the reason why I wanted to try Hierophant, because of the ease of the power charges. You get a nice amount of energy shield. This build is like not even close to being finished. Mostly right now it just has all the damage stuff, so that's why it has relatively low health in ES, but in Path of Building it has around like 5k health, I think, and like 2 point something k ES, and then you have like mana left over for Mind Over Matter. So yeah, it's pretty solid defensively, not to mention with all the freezing stuff. And yeah, the other thing about Hierophant, so you get skills in your helm can have 1 additional totem summon at a time. Now in Path of Building, I basically crafted a helm with this, no, Horror Essence, sorry. So it's like 30% more, I think, or 40% more elemental damage. And what you end up doing is you just throw a Freezing Pulse in here, and faster casting, spell totem with control destruction. That was the combination I found with the most damage. And if you have it in a hysteria helm, I mean a horror helm with the 40% more, and you have all your damage nodes from the tree, and you have your curse up and your bismuth flask up, and your frenzy charges up, and your golems out, and everything, and your auras are up, then you're going to be doing around 100 and I think 11k with the extra totem that you're going to get, which is a pretty substantial boost because you're really just going to drop that on bosses. Like you don't even really need 3 totems, right? The 3 totems are for bosses. So you're just going to have an extra totem to drop on bosses. And yeah, it's pretty decent to get like a free 100k damage from that node. So I think like this Hierophant node is by far the best damage that you're going to get for a totem build, if you're just factoring in the extra totem and single target. The other ones are kind of like more utility or not really as close. So this node is by far the MVP and pretty much the reason why you would play Ascendant or Scion. And like I said, it basically does less damage per totem by about 10 to 15k. But when you factor in how easy it is to get the frenzy charges and just how easy it is to and the extra totem that you're getting from the Hierophant node, then this build probably actually does even more than the Elementalist. So yeah, I think this is probably going to be the way to go. Not to mention you can just get more nodes in general with this build because it has more passive points. So especially with the buff to the passive points they gave. So yeah, I think this is probably going to be what I'm going to use in live unless they make significant changes. Going to be playing Glacial Cascade as well, but this is what I'm going to start beta with to farm a bunch of currency, I think. And then once I farm the currency, I'll try the other builds. So probably definitely going to be doing a Glacial Cascade build this build, and maybe a Spark Totem build, but I have my doubts about that for some reasons. that I'll get into in another video. I was kind of doing some sims, and I'm not really sure if I'm that impressed. But this definitely looks solid so far, so I'm happy with it. I think that's pretty much all I wanted to go over. That's pretty much what I've been doing on beta. I'm going to be playing a lot more in the next few weeks to get everything set up and to get my currency established in the beta so I can test a lot more stuff. Really looking forward to the beta, even though they're not changing too much, but you know, I like the game the way it is even, so they don't have to change much to make me happy. I'm just actually really happy that they made this node viable, because before it was like 20% chance and it really wasn't viable. And I actually made a forum post about it, and maybe they read it, or maybe they just decided on their own that it was bad. That could be the case too, but feels like I contributed something good to the game, so glad about that. But yeah, I'll be coming at you with tons more content, hopefully in the future. I'm going to be posting a lot more, so look forward to that stuff, and see you next time.